Hi, I'm Alex Spalinsky. I started Prepare to Serve, and now it's my opportunity to share some crazy, funny, and spiritual experiences, all from the Chile Santiago South mission. So, hope you enjoy. Joshua. One night we took a shortcut home and ran into a bunch of drunken youth who were some sort of a gang. They pulled a knife on me and tried to cut off my tie. I simply swiped my arm like a Jedi to block his arm with the knife in and kept on walking as if it was nothing. He fell to the ground and started to cry and complained to his buddies I wouldn't let him steal my tie. Sounds like a Jedi ninja missionary. I don't recommend doing that. That sounds kind of dangerous. Karen, turning on a group of guys following us and yelling at them to back off, scared them half to death. Paul, too many, mugged at knife point in Las Acacias and Clara Estrella, hanging out the door of a microbus speeding down Amerigo Vespucio and overloaded with people, listening to a mother and daughter speaking inappropriately about my companion and myself in a restaurant, not knowing we understood everything. Karen, spring 1985 earthquake was an 8.8 at the epicenter. I was in Chirico when it was about a 6. We and the elders were doing a baptism, and it started in the middle of the service. The district leader, my companion, and I, who grew up in California, started telling people to get under the chapel pews. The district leader's companion from Arizona wanted to ride out the waves. The quake lasted more than a minute, it seemed. There wasn't any apparent damage, and the investigator wanted to continue the baptism, so we did. While he was changing into dry clothes, the rest of the congregation decided to sing hymns. I was leading the music and chose Master, the Tempest is Raging, Peace, Be Still, as the first song. Of course, we all laughed a little. Man, 8.8, that is crazy. Kirk, the front tire came off my bike and I wrecked before helmets were handed out. I was in the hospital for several days. Ouch. Chad, my companion and I visited an investigator, and as we were talking about the gate, I had the impression to look behind me. I did and saw a car driving up the sidewalk at us. I grabbed my companion and pushed him up against the fence just as the car drove by, the mirror just missing me. The investigator asked us if this happens all the time. We said, not really. She then said that this church must be true then. That's awesome. All right, from Jared. I probably shouldn't talk about this, but I remember when I picked up my first greenie from the mission home and we were en route to Veluco, where we were to serve and replace the elders that were in the area before us. We had to switch buses, and as we were sitting there at the bus stop waiting for the next bus, a group of guys surrounded my companion while another guy aimed a pistol at me and tried to get me into his car. I refused, obviously, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I ended up talking him out of messing with me. My companion couldn't understand much that was being said since he was fresh out of the MTC, but by the time I got out of my strange situation and headed back over to him, the group was telling him about the things they were going to do to him, and he was just smiling, thinking they were being friendly to him. They weren't, and I don't want to write down the things I heard them say to him. Again, I don't remember what exactly I said to the group or how I said it, but I remember us getting out of there unscathed that day. My companion was a bit distressed when I explained to him what had actually happened. Oh man, that's a crazy first day. Eric, I was mugged a few times, but it was never too scary because I knew the Lord would protect me. That's true. And even if I were somehow killed, it couldn't happen at a better time than while on a mission. Besides, a general authority would probably speak at my funeral. Funny guy. BJ, we were in the home of a member and her daughter. Her son was a carabinero and didn't like the missionaries. He was discussing with my companion, who's a Chileno, about how it was his house and he could do anything he wanted in it, even kill us. His back was turned on me and I could see his gun. We left peacefully, but he had the means to carry out the threat. Ted, being in a taxi that got broadsided by a bus or hanging on to a moving bus with my fingertips. Manuel. Once we were visiting a family and people against the government exploded a police station and killed everyone. That happened about 100 yards from the house we were visiting. Vince, getting bit by a dog, ripped open my arm and I had to ride one-handed down a dirt road to the hospital. Wow, those are some crazy stories. I hope those don't scare you. Let's move on to some funny and then some spiritual experiences. Joshua. Looking at my journal after one of my cambios, that's like transfers, and it had nothing but spade scores. Karen, there are so many good or fun everyday things, but I can't think of anything specific. Adopting a kitten, falling in a pond on the way to a picnic, saying completely inappropriate things unknowingly with my terrible beginner Spanish. Chad, as a greenie, my trainer set my bed up in the dirty shed and told me it was our cuarto, our bedroom. Eric, I painted my toenails, don't ask, thinking that they would never be seen, and then I had a baptism, and as I was changing into my white clothes, I realized how horrible of a mistake it was. Pamela, learning some of the family home evening games from Chile. Chuchua and others. BJ, freak snowstorm in July. Ted, once I had a baptism in the winter, the room was full, so I stood next to the heater in the front of the room to one side. In the middle of the meeting, someone yelled, "Elder, you're on fire!" My suit coat was literally on fire. Don't stand too close to the heaters. That is funny. Vince, going to the hospital. So first, Joshua. On my first day, my trainer told me to pick the first house to knock on. After about 6 turns and going down a few streets, I felt good about a specific house. We baptized one member of the family 3 weeks later, then another member a couple weeks after that. And then the mother was baptized a few months later. Both of the girls we baptized served missions, with one of them on her mission before I even finished mine. That is so awesome. Karen, long tiring day, stopped at a house. Just a last-ditch effort for the day. And one simple door knock led to an investigator who then led us to his mom, then her friend's son, etc. He later served a mission. That door knock was never our doing. Paul, many more than any bad ones. Hard to explain that moment when the Spirit tells you exactly what is in a person's heart, and having them recognize that it is by the Spirit that we know, and that they know they must follow their heart and commit. Karen, seeing an area where we taught few lessons blossom after we and some elders wrote and directed a musical, Pelea la buena batalla de fe, Fight the good fight of faith. The young adults and youth of the stake were the performers. We saw many less active members return to the church. It's awesome. Kirk, my companion and I prayed like usual for our day, and we had a great feeling that we would have an amazing experience. After a full day of cancellations and no's, we were headed home, and we saw a house that looked like it was lit up. We knocked the door and taught a great family that eventually accepted the gospel. A lot of challenges come before the blessings I've seen. Chad, we passed an old gentleman sitting on his deck every day. Every day he waved and smiled at us. My companion and I decided we would stop in and say hi to him. As we talked to him, we found out that he was 76 years old, virtually blind and deaf, and his ears were sewn shut. And he had a speech impediment. In order to teach him, we had to yell and give him our discussions so he could read them in order to understand the principles. We were not sure if he understood everything, but he did tell us he knew what we were showing him was true. He accepted the invitation to be baptized. During the discussions, we found out that he also had a heart condition. The day came for his baptism. In order for him to be baptized, he had to sit on a metal chair, as he could not support himself as we lowered him into the water, and 20 minutes later he was baptized. A couple days later, when we were finishing up the paperwork, we realized that we missed a name and had to rebaptize him. When we told him, his heart sank, but he was very determined to have things right. We redid the ordinances after confirming his full name. He was relieved, was very determined to have things right. We redid the ordinances after confirming his full name. For the time I was there, he was faithful to his covenants, and he was a faithful member in attending church, regardless of his physical disabilities. His wife followed suit and joined the church as well, and came with him. What a good guy. Eric, there were too many to write here, but I always loved seeing an investigator feeling the Spirit for the first time. BJ, being a district leader and doing baptismal interviews. The faith of those joining the church was awesome to be a part of. Ted, spiritual experiences are so plentiful in Chile. They mostly relate to impressions regarding whom to talk to, what to say, where not to go at particular times. Manuel, I baptized the Golden family in every area I was assigned. I couldn't ask for more. That's awesome. Vince, every day, praying to ask for the dog to stop barking so people could hear the discussion. Great. Well, I hope you enjoyed some of those stories. Those are some crazy stories. Of course, that's over the course of a couple of years, over a bunch of people's experiences. But anyway, if you served in Santiago South Mission and you're willing to share some experiences through a video interview, you can just message the YouTube channel or Prepare to Serve Facebook page or website. Or you could take a survey, go to preparetoserve.com/survey, and you could share some testimony, advice, stories, etc. On the website, we have a lot more resources as well for the Santiago South Mission. Anyway, I thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks. Bye-bye.